Welcome to my tutorial for Ordyne for arcade. This is a pretty simple shooter for the most part, but the last two stages can be pretty tough. The semi-final stage is really not that difficult, but it did take me a little while to beat because it's a little tricky. The final stage is quite hard, though. I would say that's quite a difficult stage. And for that final stage, that's where I really have the most information to provide. In this tutorial, I think I can provide the most help on that final stage, which is the hardest stage in the game. So I thought it would be worth putting out the tutorial just for that final stage alone. I thought it would be worth putting it out. But what I'm going to do is basically just comment over my playthrough. This is my edited playthrough where I edited out all my unsuccessful continues. So any deaths I had on unsuccessful continues where I didn't get to the next checkpoint, which is the next progress point where you start from. Because when you continue, you will start from the last checkpoint you got to. So what I did here was, if I wasted all my lives and didn't get to the next checkpoint, then I completely eliminate that, edit out all those deaths. But if I made any type of progress at all, then I leave in those continues, basically. So I figure that's the best way to do it so that otherwise it's very confusing with the editing transitions. I did that in the past where I would edit out deaths and make it look like the run was continually moving forward, like I was continually playing forward. I wouldn't show the death screens and all that, and I would edit out deaths, and it just made it so that it was very janky in the editing where the character would jump around all over the screen and enemies would disappear at points. You could see where the checkpoints were, but it really wasn't that clear. It didn't look too good. So I found it usually comes out better if I show some of the deaths that actually moved progress forward. So I show those deaths. So yeah, this is a very basic shooter. You have your regular shot and your bombs. So basically only two fire buttons. You don't have any screen clearing bombs or anything like that, at default anyway. You can get special items from shops and things like that. Like here, you do this roulette thing. It's kind of a luck-based thing, and you can get, I got the stock bomber, which is pretty much the best thing you can get in the game as far as I saw. Because what this stock bomber does, it actually absorbs small enemy bullets so that they can't hurt you. And it has a pretty powerful single shot in the middle that just kind of it's a wavy shot. If you notice that my ship is sucking in those little tiny bullets, and they won't hurt you, so it's very good for that. You still have to watch out for things in the environment. You can't hit into enemies and things like that. But if you do take a hit, it will do that. See, it'll degrade you down to your ship. So you'll just go back to where you were. You won't lose a life. So it gives you an extra little hit that you can take. It's like a shield. It has a lot of benefits. So it's very good to get that. So what you're going to be seeing, you're going to see a lot of sloppy shit and a lot of dying because the game is very, very forgiving in the beginning, and you're going to see that I died a lot because I didn't even get a chance. Basically what happened was I didn't even get a chance to learn a section before I beat it. So that's basically what you're seeing, because remember, I didn't go back and redo any parts to make them look better or anything like that. The only change I made to this tutorial over my other playthrough that I posted up was I edited in my best final stage attempt, which I spent an additional entire 14 fucking minutes doing the last stage over again to get a no-death run on that. And I was able to do that, so I posted so the no-death run is going to be shown as a demonstrative kind of thing at the end of the tutorial. For tutorials, what I'll do sometimes is I'll post some of my best footage from practice or failed attempts, things like that. Sometimes I'll even redo sections just to get better footage. It just depends on the tutorial and how much work I want to put into it. But for this, I only redid the final stage. So everything else is going to be kind of sloppy. So, don't expect, great demonstrations of how to do all these parts. But the thing is, this tutorial is just based around showing you how to beat the game and commenting over my actual playthrough for the most part. So, this sloppy shit that I was doing here before I knew the game was enough to beat the game. It was very forgiving. Until you get to the last two stages. That's where the game picks up. It took me around 3 hours and 2 minutes to beat. And it really would not have taken that long. But, like a lot of arcade games, this one starts out quite easy for most of the game. But then at the end, it really spikes up. And, it's, trying to get your money, obviously. That's what these games are trying to do. Though this one is a little bit more, sinister with how it tries to get your money, because a lot of arcade games were just brutally difficult from the get-go, but this one is actually really pretty damn easy. I mean, as long as you're putting in a few coins here and there, you will progress through this game at a nice clip. You won't really have any stagnant moments, especially if you're somewhat familiar with shooters, because this is like a basic shooter. Until you get to the end, like I said, that's actually hard, but a lot of times what you can do on these bosses is try to point blank them like you see me doing here. Is just get super close to them, because the closer you get to them, the more bullets you're going to jam into them, as opposed to shooting at them from far away. It's an old tactic that's used in a lot of old games. Very common. It doesn't work on every old game, obviously, but it does work on a lot of them. And it works in this one. So if you want to kill bosses fast, try to get your nose right up to them and just bombard them with bullets. The good thing about this game is that you have, I believe, 3 lives, and if you do lose a life, you start right where you died. But if you lose all 3 lives, then you go back to whatever checkpoint you last got to. And there's usually a few checkpoints in each stage until you get to the end. I think the last 2 stages don't have any checkpoints at all, so you got to do the whole stage with 3 lives. So yeah, it's a fun game. I wanted to play the... After beating this, I wanted to go straight to the TurboGrafx 16 version, because I wanted to, beat it while it was still fresh in my mind. I figured it'd be a quick kill to add to the kill list. But for some reason, I can't get the ROM to work yet, so I'll see what I can do about that. If I can get it working, I'll probably definitely complete that version as well. A lot of times when I beat games, I like to complete all the various ports of the games that I can to get, rack up a bunch of kills while the game is fresh in my mind. Even though ports can be extremely different in cases, And I have not really fucked with a lot of PC ports or computer ports of games. I haven't messed with a lot of old computers and things like that. I've done a little bit on the channel, but I get a little fucking put off by it because of all the, it's not usually that, even on emulation, it's not really easy to boot up a lot of those old computers unless you know what you're doing. And it's harder to do things like save states to save your progress and do things like that. I love using, save and load states to practice games. And, on some of the old computers, you may not even be able to do that. But the main issue is that I can't get a lot of them to boot up without my good friend Bob Ruppels giving me a little instructional guide on what to do, because I'm just not familiar with those old computers. But I want to play more Amiga games, X68000, those computers I'm really interested in. They seem to have some great 16-bit games. X68000 is awesome. That has some incredibly accurate arcade ports of games around the time, Genesis era type of games around the time of the Sega Genesis. It uses a similar, I believe, processor as the Sega Genesis does, but it's like a steroided up version. So for this guy, you mainly want to stay in the middle and shoot at that core, you know what I mean, with these little balls rotating around. Of course, you want to watch out for the shit above you, but that's about it. And I did it sloppily, and it was good enough. Like I said, this game is going to be very forgiving at this point. So I'm not going to be providing any real good tips at this point. I also beat this game over the course of maybe several weeks. I was playing a bunch of other games, so keep in mind I pretty much forgot these levels. The only levels I'm familiar with now is I rewatched the semifinal stage because I knew that was a hard one. So I just rewatched it before doing this commentary, so I'm a little bit refreshed on that. And the final stage I just did either today or yesterday. I did a no-death run on that, so that one's fresh in my mind. And that's really why I wanted to make this tutorial. Because I felt like I could offer a lot of help on that final stage, which is going to be difficult for a lot of players. But I found some pretty good exploits and things that I'd like to explain. Instead of just showing I put the playthrough in my difficult sections playlist, which highlights difficult sections in various games. And I posted the no-death playthrough in there of the final stage. But I wanted to elaborate on it, and I didn't want to make a tutorial video for one stage in an obscure game, so nobody's really going to be watching a video of just the final stage of Ordyne. So I wanted to make a full-out commentary and tutorial. But for these parts, I'm just going to be kind of casually commenting on the game. For these things, when you shoot them, they spin around, which can cause problems. Sometimes they do get in the way and they can hit you. It's actually better to try to just move them the least amount that you can move them, just a little bit, so you have just enough room to get through. You really don't want to get them spinning crazily, because then you put yourself in a position where you're not going to be able to get through without getting grinded. I didn't really understand the mechanic of this at the time, but you really just want to move it very slowly. Just shoot it a few pellets at a time. Don't rapid fire blast it. Now, I used rapid fire on both my bomb and regular shot, as I pretty much do anytime I can in a game. So these roulettes are cool. You can get some pretty good stuff, like these powerful weapons and things like that if you win. But, you're going to get shops and things. The money is these balloons with the thousands on them and hundreds. That's your cash that you use in stores. I think that's the only money you have for stores and shit is when you get those balloons. So always try to pick those up. So yeah, here you see I showed that I lost the continue because I made new progress, which is super, super fucking easy to do in the early game, even the mid game. It's not until those last two stages that you actually have to put in some effort. But it's a fun game. It's a satisfying game. It's not too hard. It's a good arcade shooter to play for if you're a beginner to like really brutal arcade games. This is a good one to start with because it's mostly pretty easy. It's mostly damn fucking easy until you get to that last part. It kind of throws that shit all at you at the very end. But it's a good one to... it's a good early arcade game to beat if you're struggling to beat console-style arcade games, which are arcade games that have penalties for death, in my definition. If you're trying to beat those kind of games, this is a good easy one to start with, for the most part. Now that final stage could be a roadblock for less experienced shooter game players, but I think with my strategies, it's going to help a lot, make it a lot more manageable. Now that guy I didn't really need to explain because he's going to be in the semifinal stage, so it'd be kind of redundant. It's going to be the same fight again. But the main thing with that boss was to take out the turrets at the top, because the more turrets you take out on him, the less shit you got shooting at you. You really want to focus on the middle of the boss, but you want to eliminate some of the turrets to give yourself a little breathing room. But I'll go into that more when that actually shows up in the semifinal stage. I didn't feel like I really needed to, address that twice. So yeah, whenever you can get these little fucking balloons, though, these are good to get. One thing I like about this game is you see I have 78,700 in my crystal. It looks like a score counter, but the score is at the top. At the bottom is your crystal. And right now I have 83,700, right, of crystals. So what's cool about that is you can see as I died and continued, all my money carried over. So you don't lose it when you die. So what you can actually do is you can, if you wanted to, you probably wouldn't have to do this, but if you wanted to, you can grind money, commit suicide, and then you can buy the most expensive items in the shop, which can be really, really good. Like that shield item I showed you that will let you absorb bullets. That shit is really good. So, but I think it costs like $70,000, at least on the final stage it does. So actually what I did for the final stage was I did kind of a time-saving maneuver where I made a save state at the beginning of the final stage with $70,000 because it's just faster because it's a no-risk farming kind of thing where you can just keep playing the stage and committing suicide to rack up your money. It's just basically just a waste of time. And I ended up learning the stage no death anyway, so by me doing that, I probably didn't even really save myself that much time. But I wouldn't consider it cheap if you were playing this game and you made a save state with with a high amount of money at the beginning of a checkpoint. I wouldn't consider that cheating. It does save you some time, but to me it's legit. But like I have a whole list of it's a whole fucking detailed list of like detailed rules that I have for beating games legit. So that's just one of my standards. Everybody has different rules. Some people don't give a fuck. They just like to play for fun. They might like using save states to cheat their way through the game. I don't have a problem with that. What annoys me is when people say that they did all these legit playthroughs of the game, and then you find out they're using an invincibility cheat or some bullshit. What sucks about that is that when you're actually looking for legit strats on a game, when you're trying to work on it, and you watch their videos, you're not getting any help, because you're just seeing a sloppy-ass playthrough with invincibility or some bullshit, or they're always powered up at all times, they use save state, load state cheating, like World at Long Plays does that shit, where they use save and load state's the cheat through the game. So if they die, they'll just basically rewind to the last save state and start over. And they just keep doing that until they have a perfect run. It's a very, very cheap way. I mean, I understand they're trying to show the game, but they never really mention it. They don't talk about it a lot of times. They make it sound like they play through the games legit. So I find that to be very deceptive. I don't like that kind of shit. I always try to be extremely transparent about all my playthroughs. I show a lot of failed attempt, practice sessions, all that kind of shit. And I usually list the amount of time a game took me to beat, unless, for some reason I don't have the info. Sometimes I'll lose a shit ton of recordings on a game, and I just can't really verify how long it took. But so now we're getting to the more challenging parts of the game. So this is the first stage that's actually a fucking challenge. The rest of the game I thought was a complete joke. And I think most people are going to blaze through it. But now for this first part, you want to stay in the middle and just dodge the bullets. And try to take out a few of the turrets if you can to give yourself a little bit less bullets to dodge. But it's optional. You don't have to take them out, but it can help make it a little easier. Now for this turtle, I like to point blank this guy. And I usually take him out without dying. But I fucked it up here and actually ended up getting hit. But usually this works. You'll see what I'm doing. See how I'm positioned? Most of the time I don't die on that, but for some reason it killed me this time. So usually I can point blank shoot that guy and kill him. Pretty much like you saw me do there, except for the death. Just ignore that one fucking death. And that's pretty much what I do. Now I did use some of my invincibility frames after my first death to get in that extra damage and get right up on his ass and jam those bullets into him. But yeah, you can kill that turtle super fast if you do that. So just do a variation of that. Try what I did, and use save and load states, of course, to practice all these different sections that you think you're going to have trouble with. It makes it so much faster to beat these stages when you can practice them in sections. Because we got access to this fucking tech now. We don't need to start stages and entire games over just to practice them. You know what I mean? I always beat games completely legit, but I'll practice parts for hours if I need to. So yeah, this guy, it's basically stay in the center and shoot that thing as it goes up and down, but try to stay centered with it and keep shooting it in the middle. And of course, you got to watch out for that shit that's dropping down on you, so try to dodge between that shit. So yeah, you got a lot of shit that you can buy, but a lot of it is super expensive in that shop. So unless you have a lot of money saved up, I wouldn't really... I mean, you can for this stage, because this is a very hard stage, so if you can afford it, then buy it. For this guy, this is the same boss we fought earlier. You want to try to take out as many of the turrets as you can before he comes up to where you're at. And then at that point, you're going to circle around and try to just keep shooting at the middle. But the more turrets you can take out, the easier it's going to make. And I didn't play this, I didn't play this cleanly at all. I think I died once on it, but I mean, it was pretty sloppy. But that's the general idea. You want to try to get in some shots and then move either up or down to dodge that shot that he shoots out. You can't shoot behind you unless you have some kind of power-up that shoots backwards. I believe there is a power-up that will shoot backwards, if I remember right, but most likely you're not going to have that. But you really don't need it. It's pretty simple, as long as you get those turrets out. The turrets are the main issue. It's easy once you get the turrets out, but if you don't get those out, they can put a lot of bullets on the screen. And the boss is huge, so it can kind of corner you and kill you. And like I said, if you want, farm up a bunch of money, like $100,000 or whatever, or crystals, and then make a save state at the beginning of the stage with all the money, and I would say that's legit. But again, that's just my opinion on it. But if you do that, you can buy pretty good shit at the shop and use that against the bosses and stuff, and it can help a lot. So that is another option. You have to determine, if you think it's legit or not, but it's something you can do. So yeah, this is the final boss of this stage. And I found this guy to be pretty easy by just moving basically up and down and dodging the missiles and trying to get my shots in. The main thing I'm avoiding is that barrage of 3 missiles that he keeps firing, which is pretty easy to dodge. These lasers can be tough, as you saw. The lasers are not easy to dodge. But by that point, he's almost dead, so just try to hold out a little bit longer and you'll finish him off. So now we have the final stage coming up. For the final stage, like I said, made a save where I had like 70,000 crystals or something like that. 76,000, as you see. And whenever I died on the stage, I would just load that state and start off with the 76,000 crystals, so I could buy the item that I wanted. I actually ended up not really even like needing it much for the strategies I use. So for this part, you want to get in. I like getting into this longer one that gives you more room to move around, and I just kind of ride it, to the end here. Wait till the screen is almost at the end before you move forward past this piston. And do the same again for this next piston. You don't want to move ahead too prematurely because there's enemies and there's also walls and shit that you'll hit into. So now get in this middle part and wait for this part to rotate. It's going to spaz out for a while and jerk around. Wait till the end of the screen. Now make a beeline straight through the top of that rotating part. You saw me make like a straight rush. And that got me almost to the end of this circular thing without having to dodge a lot of bullshit because it moves around real jerky, real spastic. It's one of the hardest parts of the stage, for me anyway. Now wait a while, get in that top area, and then drop down into the shop, as you saw me do. Get this $70,000 bag. And that item is like the best item in the game as far as I can tell. So now you're going to absorb all the small bullets. So you don't have to worry about the small bullets anymore. And now you're just going to focus on killing shit and dodging. So now we have another one of these rotating wheels, which can be the trickiest parts, but I find the second one to be a lot easier, especially with this this power-up, because it's going to absorb all the small bullets. So all you got to focus on is finding your path through here, and you'll find a consistent path through here. This is the kind of game that you can definitely memorize, because it's an old-style game, so these patterns are not going to change, unless you change the way you move, They will adapt around the way you move. So here you're going to shoot your way through here, take out those turrets, and for those mouths you want to kind of back up and then go forward again and shoot them, as you saw me doing. These things have a pretty easy timing. You wait for them to swing around. As they're swinging up, you're going forward. It's a little tricky, but it's pretty basic. Now, you see, I took a hit here and lost my shield, but that's good. I wanted to lose that because for this next part, check out what I do here. This part can be very, very difficult. And I couldn't do it consistently until I figured out this hit point, this hitbox exploit. See how I got right in the center of the blocks? I was able to pass right between them. I found that the hitbox is really generous if you get right in that seam on that part. I don't know if it works for all the parts with the blocks, but I'm guessing it does. But you see I got right on that seam. You want to get that positioning down perfect. Now for this part, stay at the back for a long-ass time, and now rush forward to this top area. Make sure you're at the lower portion of that top platform because you want to shoot the enemies on the ground as soon as you hit that top platform. If you do all that the way I showed, you can make these parts very, very easy. And now there's some, of course, directions and things that I wasn't able to explain quick enough because there's a lot going on, but you get the idea. Practice that with save and load states, that safe spot I found between the blocks. Look at exactly how I did that and practice that. It'll make it much easier. For this boss, very easy. Get up close to him and point blank him in the start. Now start moving back. Try to take out both of those guys and get under them as soon as you can. Now stay right here, back up, and then go back up to the top and finish point blanking him in the head. And that will finish him off. Very, very easy boss once you know how to do that. And again, practice this final stage in sections with save and load states so that you know what to do on each part. Because you really want to have it down. You don't want to be second guessing shit. Especially when you only have 3 lives to work with, so for the end, I showed my no-death run of that final stage, but you have 3 lives, so you don't need to do it perfectly. When I beat it in my actual run, I think I lost 2 lives or something like that anyway. So, and I still beat it. I do show the other playthrough. So, if you want to check it out, you can, but it's a very subtle difference from this tutorial version. It just doesn't have any commentary. And the final stage, the only difference is I showed my actual successful playthrough on the final stage, which was a worse playthrough than what I did in this refined playthrough of the final stage. Like I said, I spent an additional 14 minutes, replaying the final stage to get the no-death run on that stage. I figured that should be the highlight of the tutorial since that's the hardest thing in the game. Let me know if you have any questions, and thanks for watching.